Door. My name is Brian Lowe. I'm with the Vermont Council on Rural Development, and I'm joined in the room by Jenna Kolaski, Margaret McCoy, and Kim Roop, also from the Council on Rural Development. We're very happy to be here. So what I'm about to say, the mic is not working for folks in the room, but the mic is working for folks who are hybrid on Zoom. So it is a tricky world we're living in right now, folks, and we're doing our best to navigate that. So we want to make it possible for people to join remotely. Hello to everybody on Zoom, where Alyssa Johnson, also from the Council on Rural Development, is going to help lead with folks on Zoom and stop us if they lose audio. So when I am walking around the room, I'm going to ask you to speak into this mic, but you're not going to hear your voice projected in the room. It'll allow the folks on Zoom to hear you and understand you. Does that make sense?
Really silly. But we promise it's necessary.
I promise they can actually hear you, and this isn't a joke. Yeah. So we are really excited to be here tonight. And to kick off tonight, we wanted to have two members of the Highgate community give some kind of opening remarks. And whenever we come into a community as the Council on Rural Development, we always ask around for somebody who is kind of a center point in that community, somebody who is deeply committed to the community, who really understands the community, cares a lot about projects that are happening. And as we asked around in Highgate, one name kept coming up again and again and again. And many of you may not be surprised to hear this name, but we're very grateful to her for offering to be the chair of this kind of community visit process. So this multi-month process where we want to hear from the community. And I'd like to ask Rebecca Manning to come up and say a couple words to get us started.
Good evening. Welcome. This is very bizarre to speak into this microphone that's not projecting.
I can't even
Since it's not projecting. I don't know where to stand. Thank you all for coming. It was nice to see everybody that came out to the first meeting, and it's really nice to see that some of you came back out tonight so that we can continue this process and move to the next step and choose some of the projects and the ideas that we want to move forward on as a community here in Highgate. And I look forward to seeing some of you with some of your friends at the next meeting that we will have at the end of May.
Rebecca, thanks a lot. And I think Rebecca's referring to the 18 different ideas that are on the wall here. And in a moment, we'll talk through the process specifically for tonight and what we're hoping to accomplish tonight. But the next person I really would like to ask to come up and speak is the chair of the Select Board. And as an organization, the Vermont Council on Rural Development won't work in a community unless we're invited. And so I want to thank Sharon Bosquet for both being our liaison to the Select Board and for doing a lot of work with us behind the scenes to try and get as many different voices into this process in different ways over the past couple months. Sharon, do you want to come up and say a couple words? Thank you.
So thank you all for coming. It's a little less bit of a crowd, but that just means you're totally committed, so that's fabulous. We really want to thank the Vermont Council on Rural Development. They've started a process that should do extremely well in Highgate and should fit into our restructuring and our reimagining quite well. So we want to thank you all for coming. We also want to thank the school. They've generously allowed us to come in today, even though they're half staff on their cleaning crew, so have a little patience. They've gone above and beyond, so we want to thank them for that as well. So, thank you.
Hey, Sharon, thank you. And folks on Zoom, Melissa, are you able to hear us okay as we're passing the mic back and forth? Okay, thank you. So the goal tonight is to go down from these 18 different ideas that we have on the wall, which are ideas that came from the community. And Jenna will talk us through the process by which we plan to do that tonight. These are ideas that we heard in this room and in breakout sessions about a month ago. And I recognize many of you from that time about a month ago. We had about 120 people in the room, the jazz band here, Phoenix House with the food. It was a great night, lots of really good ideas. And tonight is a bit of a challenge in the sense that we need to narrow down from this significant group of ideas into a couple very specific priorities for the community for the future. And I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to speak to that process, but first I want to share a little bit about why we're doing this work. Why do we as the Council on Rural Development do this work? And there's a couple things to point out. First, we're a neutral nonprofit. We don't have an agenda. We don't know Highgate. Everyone in this room knows Highgate better than I do, right? And so we come without an agenda, but with a process to hear the ideas, and at the end of the process, to link those ideas towards folks with resources to try and help make them a reality here in Highgate. We've worked in 83 communities in Vermont over 25 years. We work slowly and methodically. We spend a lot of time in each community for the visit process, about 4 months, and then for months or years after on those projects as they continue. Why do we do the work? Well, there's real uncertainty in the world. Everybody sees it, everybody feels it. Things like inflation, things like challenges overseas, things like a pandemic. There's real challenges in our communities, and it is incumbent on all of us to kind of step up, like each generation has done before, and strengthen the democracy and the kind of local institutions that we rely on. And so in that sense, I'm really grateful for everybody for giving their time tonight and stepping forward for Highgate and thinking about Highgate's future proactively for the community, for your families, and for the future here in Highgate. And with that, let me turn it over to Jenna to talk a little bit about the next steps and how the meeting will run tonight.
Great. Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. So I'm Jenna Kolaski. I work for the Council on Rural Development. So I'll be kind of walking you through the steps tonight. Really quickly, a look back at how we got here. So there's like a crackly crackle. Is that? It sounds like maybe an input that's shaky or something. Nice, Margaret. All right. So how we got here. So remember actually starting way back in April, February, we had a group of residents from all over the community that came together to help frame this process. So they're the ones that kind of set up what are the topics we're going to discuss at those forums in March, and also help to kind of get the word out broadly in the community. So this process is really framed in local leadership and what's important to Highgate. A month later, so back in March, we held those 4 forums here at the school and the dinner. And in those forums, we were collecting ideas, your ideas for the future of the community. We also had a forum with high school students, and they shared their ideas. They're all built into the input that you're going to see tonight. And we had actually quite a few kind of online surveys as well. The people shared ideas that way. So a lot of input across the community that has gone into building these ideas that we're going to review together tonight. So the goal tonight is to really go from that whole list of 18 to deciding what are the 3 ideas that we're actually going to focus on today. Like, what are the things? None of these ideas are bad ideas. These are all ideas that came from the community. They're all important. But what are the things that are important to decide on, focusing our time and energy on today? So that's the goal of this meeting. So quick overview of the agenda. First, we're here, overview, where we've been, where we're going. Really quickly, we're going to shift very briefly. We asked the steering committee about a month ago, is it important to kind of frame some of this action in a quick visioning conversation? Like, as we think about getting this work done, what are we aiming for the future? So we're going to have a quick conversation about vision, and then we're going to shift into action. We're going to review all 18 of those ideas. So we're actually going to go around the room, read through. You should have the white sheet in your hand. If you don't have one, we can get one to you. But that white sheet, and folks online, we're going to be, we'll post the link to the ideas list so that you'll have that. We're going to review all those ideas together, make sure we didn't miss anything, because it's possible that there were things in the mix that you feel really strongly should have been on the wall that we have missed, so we'll check in on that. And then we're actually going to go to a very quick gut check vote. So after we look at these 18, what are the top 8 that stand out as things that you would like to work on today? So we're going to do one round of voting. And folks online, you'll have a way to vote at that moment as well, and we'll explain how that's going to work. Folks in the room will give you some dots to put on the wall. And then we're going to have a nice long discussion. We call it championing priorities. So it's not a debate, but it's really about saying, here's what I think is most important. When I look at these 8, I think we should focus on this, and here's why. So we'll have a moment to kind of discuss that and make sure that, that's your chance to kind of advocate for the one that you would like to move forward. And then in the end, we're going to vote down to the top 3. priorities that emerge. And that's something that Rebecca and I talked about. Like, that feels like it might be the right number for the community at this time, knowing there's other things going on in town. That won't be the only 3 things happening. There's plenty of other work happening in Highgate, but those are the 3 we want to focus on. And then we'll close, and then what we're going to do is put some sign-up sheets at the back of the room for folks that want to work on those things. Like, that's our other goal tonight. We want to decide what we're going to work on, but we also want to find community members that are ready to step up and work on those things together. We'll also send that out to our full list of 120 people that have been involved and make sure we get some sign-ups that way too. And we can share it around locally as well. So that's the plan for the evening. Just a couple of kind of logistics before we get going here. As Brian mentioned, it's a bit unconventional, the whole hybrid setup. And as I mentioned as I went through, we want people on Zoom to be able to be participating in the same way that people in the room are. So throughout this meeting, like I said, we're gonna walk around and do this silly exercise of just holding a microphone in front of our face. We'll come around to you with the microphone so people on Zoom can hear us. We'll make sure to pause. Kim is gonna keep track. For those folks on Zoom, we have a staff member in the room here who's gonna let us know if you're raising your hands. So at the moments where we're looking for community participation, you can use, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little reactions button. You can click on that, and that's how you can raise your hand. That's the best way to let us know that you want to chime in with something to say. If you're on camera, you can also kind of wave vigorously, and we'll see that you want to be called on as well. And if all else fails, you can also unmute and kind of shout at us. But we do have chat disabled in the Zoom. And sorry, these are some Zoom logistics really quickly. We have chat disabled because it can get a little confusing, but there is chat. If you have a technical issue or a question, you can chat to Alyssa Johnson, who's on the Zoom, and she can help you figure out if you're having any trouble. Let me just see if there's any other Zoom things I'm forgetting. All right, and so when we get to the voting part, we'll explain in the room how we're going to vote. We'll also kind of turn off the audio, and Alyssa's going to lead those of you on Zoom through the voting process, which is pretty simple, but just different from what we're doing in the room. But we'll add those together so that it's all treated equally. So that's the plan for the evening. I'll just mention quickly before we move on, as Rebecca said, there's one more meeting in this process. So tonight's about selecting priorities. It's about folks signing up to take action. The next step in the process will be on May 24th. I'm hoping we're going to be back here at the school, although I have to confirm that with the principal. But I'm hoping we'll be back here. What we'll do is come back together like this, do a quick check-in on a couple of things, including that vision conversation we're going to have tonight. But then we're actually going to break out into those priority groups. So whatever's prioritized tonight, we'll break out, and that's where we're going to do action planning. We want to leave the community with an action plan and also a list of resources that can help to move those ideas forward. So we want to make sure we're actually going to bring with us a team. Last time, if you were here for the first forums, if you weren't, that's okay. If you were here, there was a team, a visiting team of folks that were here to listen in, to share reflections. For that last meeting, we're actually going to ask a team, we're going to look at the priorities you choose tonight and say, who are the people that might have technical assistance that they could bring to that effort? Who are the people that might have funding support that they could bring to these ideas? And sometimes even, what are other communities that have been successful in that work? And we'll bring them to share their thoughts and help guide those groups forward. So that'll be May 24th, and we'll, of course, share information over email about that and other ways. So I think that's the plan. I think what I'm going to do, like I said, we're going to step back really briefly and have a visioning conversation. Brian's going to lead that, and then I'll be back after that to get into these ideas.
Hey, thank you, Jenna. Can folks hear me okay? Great. So, and in the room, yes. So the mic is not working. The mic is for folks on Zoom. Great. Okay. All right, so we're going to take a quick step back before we get into these kind of decisions about action. And the reason to take a step back is this. We want to pause for just a moment and think about where the community wants Highgate to be in, say, 10 years, thinking more broadly, stepping back and thinking from a higher elevation, right? All the work that we've done so far has been around specific actions, specific ideas that you can have very practical steps and follow up on, right? We want to step back from those very practical, specific ideas to a little bit broader points of vision. And so what I mean by that is, one of the ideas here is thinking about how to boost tourism in Highgate, right? That is a very practical idea. There are clear steps you could follow to pursue that as an objective as a community. Boosting tourism is an idea. A vision point might be something like, I envision a future where Highgate is a community that attracts people of all ages and in all seasons. So a much broader vision. And the reason to do this is to think about, where are we driving toward? What are these specific actions that are going to result in priorities and projects? What are those about? Does that make sense to folks? Is that kind of distinction between action ideas and these kind of broader points of vision clear? Okay. We're only going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes thinking this through. And the way it will work is, if you're here in the room, raise your flesh and blood hand, and I will call on you. I might ask you to stand if you're able and share a little bit about what you see, what you think about when you think about Highgate in the future. If you're on Zoom, I'd ask you to raise that Zoom hand or do any of the steps that Jenna laid out, including yelling as a last resort to get our attention. We're going to take notes on the ideas and these kind of vision points that people have. We'll combine them into a survey, and we'll share that back to you as participants tonight after the meeting, and also with the community more broadly. It can be really helpful to hear where there's a broad consensus among residents about kind of future direction and future vision for the municipality. So is someone willing to kind of kick us off and share a quick thought about what they see, what they think about when they think about Highgate, in 10 years, say, or Highgate in the future? Yes, sir, in the back. And I'm going to bring the mic to you and ask you to speak into it, even though it's not projecting. So here you go.
You'll hear me.
You can hold it and then I'll grab that.
Oh, okay. So, for all the, whatever we come,
Saying your name as well?
Ty Swanier, for any ideas that we come up with, for the last three, I just, see a lot of faces that have been in Highgate a long time. Whatever we do, I think we need to keep Highgate somewhat of the same place that we chose to live here for. Change is hard, it's inevitable, but there's ways to do it and keep Highgate still Highgate and not the place that some of the new people in town moved away from because they didn't like where they were.
So preserving traditions, preserving some of what makes Highgate Highgate as a kind of important point of vision for the community. Other thoughts, other ideas? Thank you, Ty. What else do people think about when they think about Highgate broadly? So I'll come here to the, ma'am.
Sukota. I've been in Highgate for over 50 years. Highgate's been my home.
Speak up a little, yeah.
I've been in Highgate for 50 years. Highgate's been my home. It's a friendly little town. Everybody gets together. We're trying to move forward, and thank you guys for coming up. We want to move forward, and it's time to Highgate move in the right direction.
Okay. So Highgate kind of accepting some change, thinking about the future, balancing some of that tradition, balancing.
Kids here.
Okay.
Our younger kids here.
So as a vision point, I might articulate it back to you and tell me if I'm hearing you right, that, in the same way that we want to preserve some components of Highgate and some of what Highgate is here, also accepting some change, particularly around ways to attract youth,
Right.
Okay, in the community.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sir.
Getting up in the world, call me sir. Hi, I'm Richard Noel. I see three major components that should be coming into town and develop and keep up anyway. Being an agricultural town, we know that's a winding industry, but we still have the land base, which will be continued to be operated. We have a recreational area, the hockey rink, the recreational club that should be kept going. That's a good place for the youth to work off some energy. But we also have coming up the airport facility, the water and sewer line coming in, which will give, hopefully, within the next 10 years, there'll be some industry that comes in that the youth will be able to get jobs in aeronautical, technical, those type of industries. There's a lot of work out there if you have abilities to do certain tech work, drive truck, electrical, plumbing. We don't all have to be college educated.
Thank you. So I'm going to, tell me if I've got this right, that, it's a community that, and from a points of vision perspective, a community that has kind of a dynamic mix of agriculture, recreation, and entrepreneurs or business, right? If I were to kind of try and summarize it in a sentence or two. And just a word about masks, folks. Like very few people are wearing masks. We often don't wear masks in our lives, but because we travel around the state, we do think that when we're in a meeting as a team, we're going to wear masks when we're in the crowd. And so I know it's a little bit back and forth, but if you can't hear me, let me know. Other thoughts or points, about this kind of points of vision? What else do people see as they think about Highgate as a community in the future? Kind of broad strokes. I got two in the back here. I'll go to the way back and then right up to you next. Thank you.
My name is Therese Tucker, and to speak to Ty, I moved here to get out of the city, so I don't want to see Highgate become a city, but I'd just like to see us all come together more. So I think more community, more events, more things to bring us together, the old, the new, and whoever's coming in as a community.
Hey, thank you. So a dynamic community, a well-connected community. Thank you.
Amber Maishi. I think that we have a lot of really great public spaces, both indoor and outdoor, and I'm really excited to see those be more utilized in the future, be more not developed, but just be welcoming to our community and to people who visit. And I also am hoping for the future that we can use these spaces, both indoors and outdoors, to offer opportunities to all age groups to gather and come together and teach our children what being a community in a small town is, and teach them those values.
Amber, thank you. And so from a vision perspective, I want to make sure that we're capturing where you're thinking, like kind of using the natural resources and the local resources here in Highgate to kind of build a stronger sense of community and to preserve those resources here in the town. Okay. How about the other side of the room? Here we go.
Hi, I moved here 3 years ago, and I first came and visited during the winter, and I'm from California, born and raised, 36 years, local in my little town, Santa Barbara, California. And I left there because it wasn't home anymore after I visited Highgate, and it says a lot about a community that I knew so many people, and I was a known family in the place I came from, but this was home after I visited it for 3 days with a family. Moved here with my husband. We have not regretted it. It's home. This is home. And I have to second a lot of the people over there that have said, the reason we chose Highgate over even St. Albans or anywhere else was it is community. It's smaller. People are real. And you can go to the gas station, and it doesn't matter what background you're from in the morning, and people are talking to each other. And so more gathering spots, if there was a restaurant or a cafe or something, because I learned so much every time I go out, and McEwen's, all these places, the places that are open. So just being able to connect and get to know people, and it doesn't matter what background you're from, if it's real conversations here. So
Hey,
nice.
No, that's great. That's great. And I want to take, the cafe is a real concrete idea. I would extrapolate from that from a vision perspective to kind of well-connected community, lots of opportunities for interaction and learning. Okay.
I'm not behind a cafe.
So, no, thank you. I think we have time for maybe one or two more. And I wonder, has anyone on Zoom got a comment? Okay, others in the room too? I'm looking over to my right side of the room just to see if there's another comment or two from folks on this side. I got two, so I'll go here, Claude, and then right behind you.
Claude Chevalier, lifelong resident, and I'd just like to second what Caroline just said. It's interesting when people move into a town. I ask everybody in the room, if somebody moved in next door, how long does it take you to know them? Or, I've talked to people that they say, I don't know my neighbors, or how long have they lived there? I don't know, 20 years. And so I like the small community. I like the restraint about trying to become like a city, or trying to get too much industry where all of a sudden taxes are higher. And yes, there's jobs, but then you lose the just the essence of what a small town is. So anything we do, that would be kind of in the background in my mind. Is this going to turn us into more of a, more of a urban style, even city center or village center versus a place that's a small town?
Thank you, Claude. So a really dynamic small town is the vision there, right? Like the best of the small town with the dynamism. Okay, one last comment, I think.
Yeah, I think basically, Melanie Thompson, I think I was basically going to say the same thing. For me, it would be nice to have a place where anything I wanted to do on the weekend or an evening, I could find it in Highgate. I mean, I'm not talking about, the Rockettes, but if I want to go to go to a cafe or go to a bar that feels comfortable or go for a hike, you can find it in Highgate. You don't have to drive to St. Albans. Or I'm a homebody. I don't want to go too far.
Or a Grateful Dead show.
Yeah.
All right. Any kind of final comments? Any last comments? Folks on Zoom, I want to make sure I'm not leaving you out. All right, thank you, folks. It is really helpful to get that sense of broader vision before we jump into the fun part, which is really thinking about these kind of ideas for action. Jenna, is that a good place to turn it over to you?
Yeah, we're early.
Oh, we got one last comment. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if there's going to be a better place to ask. I kind of waiting. Is there going to be any ability to combine?
Oh yes, it is a potential possibility. I think Jenna's the expert on that, so I'll defer to her. But it's a good question.
Great question.
And the question for folks on Zoom was about potentially combining some of the different idea types. So, hey, thank you, folks.
Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do next is really shift towards thinking about those ideas that are on your sheet. Here, let me pull mine up. So going from vision to really digging into what are the ideas that the community shared. Oh yeah, I'm going to take this off quickly. What are the ideas the community shared and kind of sifting through them. And here's what we're going to ask you all to do. And if we all volunteer to take part in it, it goes quickly. It's really helpful if we can read these out loud. I know it feels like a lot, but we want everyone to start on the same page, right? Like basically what we've done, we looked at all of the notes from those forums from last month, all of the survey input, all of the ideas that the high school students shared in that forum. And you can imagine when you look through those, a lot of different things are going to connect, right? And you can kind of do like a cluster analysis of, one idea that came up in the community fund forum and another idea that came up in health and safety for the community. And those things might be connected. And so we did our best to take all those different pieces and parts of ideas and add them up to the 18 that you're seeing here. And so what we're going to do is just really quickly walk through all of these, read them out loud, all get on the same page about kind of what's in front of us before we dive into the conversation about them to make sure we all have an understanding. So you're going to see the heading is the idea, and the text below it is really trying to capture all those different pieces that we heard throughout those forums. And so I'd love it if just in the room, like a raise of hand, if you're willing to read one out, and we'll just walk through the list. And folks on Zoom, I'm going to ask for volunteers from you as well. You're going to have it pulled up on your screen in front of you there. And we can hear you loud and clear in the room. So you all should feel free to chime in as well. So I'm going to come around to the microphone. I'm going to hold on to the microphone. It's just easier to move around quickly if I've got a grip on it. So sorry if that feels funny, but I'm just going to hold on to it as I walk around. So, somebody willing to read the first one? All right. Thank you. I'm going to hold on to it.
Okay. Expand housing options. A housing task force could form to identify strategies from new development to zoning changes and/or a housing fund to create a diversity of housing options in the community. Particular focus could be on the needs of young or new families looking to relocate to or stay in the community.
Excellent. Next one. Another volunteer on this side.
To improve and expand pedestrian safety and walkability. Highgate residents are concerned about speeding on the roads and the safety of pedestrians of all ages. A task force could form to, in collaboration with the Village Core Committee, explore traffic calming solutions to address these issues through improved sidewalks and walkability, speed bumps or other deterrence measures, and enforcement strategies.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And as I'm going through, by the way, if you've got a pen or a pencil in front of you, like feel free to mark down the ones that you're kind of interested in as we go, as we get to the voting shortly.
Advanced career training and workforce development. A task force could form to develop a comprehensive strategy to better connect youth and local business and improve access to practical training into the trades, agriculture, education, and more. This could include developing training, mentoring, and job placement opportunities with area businesses and manufacturers, and creative work-based learning opportunities. The task force could host community events and engage in targeted outreach in the schools, regional tech centers, and the community to better celebrate the trades and agriculture and highlight a diversity of alternative career pathways and training opportunities. In particular, training and educational opportunities offered could focus on jobs that may emerge as a result of airport expansion.
Thank you. You can tell there was a lot going on in that one. A lot of ideas there. You wanted to read one? Sure. Go ahead.
Expand community events. A task force could A task force could form to plan an annual series of events to unify and connect the community and offer entertainment and fun for all ages. Events could include an annual tree lighting, concerts, a village celebration, and ice cream socials. A task force could work to recruit and engage volunteers in event planning and management and invite the full community to join in. Events could help to bring vibrancy to the community, provide more opportunities and community gathering, and engage youth.
All right. That was an exemplary job. That's how you project. And the next one. Let's go. Somebody on Zoom want to read one? Just go ahead and unmute and chime in on the volunteerism one. Go ahead, Chad. I see you unmute. Can we not hear them? Evangeline? Oh, we're not hearing.
So they're reading, we're not hearing.
Yeah. Sorry, folks on Zoom, we're not hearing you. Should that be coming in? Oh, there we go. Go for it, Evangeline. Start. If you could start over.
Boost community, volunteerism, and engagement. A group could form to build and implement a campaign to enlist more community volunteers and help to foster a culture of volunteerism and civic engagement in Highgate. The group could actively share, promote, and recruit for community volunteer needs, from event organizing to municipal leadership and emergency services. Additionally, the group could work with schools to better share volunteer roles and the benefits of civic engagement with youth and community and provide opportunities and incentives for youth volunteerism.
All right. Thank you very much. And Chad, you know I'm coming to you next since you turned your video on. Go ahead.
Through community communications, can you hear me?
Yep.
A task force could form to expand communications, resources, and avenues to include an online hub, bulletin boards, mailings, signage, increased front porch forum participation, and a print newspaper or newsletter to keep residents informed. The group could survey the community to determine the best channels for communication and use that input to create a comprehensive communications plan.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, let's go back to the room. Does somebody want to take the next one? Amber?
Address crime and improve enforcement. Highgate residents are concerned about the lack of follow-through and enforcement when it comes to speeding, vandalism, or other dangerous activities in the community. A task force could come together to address these issues by both improving local strategies, such as a neighborhood watch type of effort, or by working with the local and state officials to encourage improved enforcement and follow-through.
All right. Do you want to do the next one again? And then I'll come back here.
Recruit and support local business. A task force could work with experts to develop a recruitment plan with strategies to attract businesses and inventors opportunities to highlight and market town assets. The incentivities, is that how you pronounce it? Incentives and technical assistance to support businesses. Highgate residents of all ages are particularly interested in seeing more restaurants, lodging, a cafe, and outdoor gear shop to build on river and bike trail assets.
All right, thank you very much. I'm coming right up here for the next one.
Okay. Oops, okay. Develop a community resource hub. A group could form to develop a hub, perhaps at an expanded library or other community space, that could host a variety of services to ensure all residents have what they need to thrive. Services could include the provision of substance use support, mental health assistance, adult ed programs, career services, telehealth support, help with the connection to health and dental care, and more.
All right, thank you. And the next one? All right, close by. That's great.
Expand and clean up parks, river access, and green spaces. A task force could form to plan a series of volunteer days to clean up river access and picnic areas in Highgate. Additionally, the group could identify opportunities to expand parks and green spaces or identify new opportunities to create outdoor space for public use and gatherings.
All right, thank you very much. Someone else on the next one. Yeah. Here, I'll come up to the other side of you here. Go ahead.
Support local agriculture and ag career pathways. A task force could form to celebrate the long tradition of agriculture in Highgate and help to encourage and foster the next generation of dairy, beef, and diversified veggie farms and value-added producers in the community. The group could partner with area schools to increase exposure to career options within the ag sector and develop training and mentorship programs for youth and local farms. The group could work to celebrate and share agriculture with the community by hosting agricultural events and/or working with area farms to create community trails or other opportunities to visit farms and learn more about the rich agricultural history and culture.
All right, thank you very much. Next one, all right.
Expand the Highgate Library and Community Center. Many residents shared a need for expanded space and services at the Highgate Library and Community Center. Work is currently underway to build a plan for a new expanded building that could include a plan for some kind of community gathering space. A group could form to work in support of the library staff and trustees to engage community support, identify and access funding sources, and help to move forward a major library and community center expansion initiative.
All right, one more page to go. You're doing great. Let's go back. Anybody on Zoom want to take one?
I love wastewater. Can I get this one?
Yes, please.
Extend and develop wastewater infrastructure. A task force, another one, could form to work in support of the town and the village board committee to expand on local wastewater infrastructure to better serve the economic future of the community. A recently approved initiative will help to expand wastewater out to the airport development, but other opportunities remain to extend that infrastructure for future business growth and/or to develop water and sewer for the village. Local volunteers help to boost public support and connect to technical assistance and funding these initiatives.
Thank you very much. Someone else on Zoom want to take the tourism one? Anybody?
Boost Highgate tourism.
All right, go for it.
A tourism and marketing task force was formed to attract visitors and potential new residents to the community to support the local economy. The group will focus both on targeted marketing efforts to share local assets as well as building amenities, activities, and opportunities to attract and serve visitors from the region, the U.S., and across the border. This could include showcasing local events, boosting agritourism opportunities, highlighting the rail trail and other recreation, or the development of a small welcome center or kiosk to share information for a variety of audiences. The group could consider strategies such as a Highgate passport that would encourage visits to community businesses, farms,
Thank you very much. All right, somebody in the room want to take the next one? All right.
Improve ATV access and safety. A group could form to focus on identifying ways to improve access to places to ride ATVs that work for everyone in the community. They could identify designated areas to safely ride while also offering educational and fun activities for youth and adults interested in getting involved. The group could explore policy changes such as opening up certain roads or other areas to ATV use, and also amenities such as a local ATV shop for parts and repair.
Great, thank you. Next one? Sure. Go for it.
Welcome and connect new residents. A group could form to develop strategies to better welcome and connect new Highgate residents. Some strategies may include a Welcome to Highgate packet, a community directory and guide, and identifying existing residents willing to partner with new residents to help answer questions and welcome newcomers to the community.
Great. Next one? Okay, I'll do this and then you get the last one.
Okay. Host local recreation clubs. The task force could form to develop a series of local recreation clubs, events, and social activities to help to connect community members and provide opportunities for recreation, health, and wellness. Clubs could include running, canoeing, skiing, adult recreation leagues, and more.
Excellent. And I think the last one had a hand over here. Go ahead.
That's a short one. Celebrate and boost the rail trail. A task force could form to better capitalize on the rail trail. The group could focus on celebrating the trail through events and activities, and also identifying strategies to improve amenities and trail connections. A strategy placed pit stop, snack bar, bike shop, and or info kiosk could help to attract bikers to stop and visit the community and local businesses. Improved lodging options could help to make Highgate a rail trail destination. The group could then work to promote the rail trail and local amenities to attract users to the community.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for working through that with us. Now we're all starting from a common place. We've seen the list as it stands now. Pretty quickly here, we're going to turn to a vote. Before we do that, I want to ask a couple questions, though, because we don't always get it right. And so I want to make sure a couple things. Number one, when you think back to ideas you shared in the forum, ideas you heard in the forums, are we missing anything major? And knowing that a lot of the kind of details are within those paragraphs, but is there like a major idea that we've missed? Or did we get anything wrong that you'd want to let us know about? Let me come here.
It's okay, go ahead. I may have missed it when you were talking today, but in the schools meeting, I know that it came up a lot, the trying to find a way to be able to get more teachers in because the regulations were so strong, and I just don't hear anything about schools.
There's a revote going on.
Well, there's a revote for that, but I just was curious if that.
Yeah, I think the question would be, I saw some notes on that. It wasn't clear to me kind of the bigger picture idea, but if you had a kind of idea that you'd want to add to this list, we could do that if there feels like if it feels like it's not covered in any of these.
Well, that's like offering jobs to people that live here instead of recruiting to New York and Burlington. That's why it was local, because the regulations were so.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly add some here. I don't want to.
Okay. No, it's fine. No, I was just curious if that was. We talked about that so long. I just didn't hear it, so I was just letting you know. I didn't know if that was somewhere else.
Yeah. No, let's go ahead and build something on that. And if I'm hearing you right, like it would kind of be the idea would be, like improving, like recruiting and retaining education. Yeah, recruiting and retaining local education leaders. Okay. Okay, so do you get that, Brian? So for folks on Zoom that can't see in the room, so there was an idea to add the idea of kind of recruiting and retaining local education providers and leaders. And Brian's just going to add that to a sheet so that it's going to be on the wall. And simultaneously, Margaret is adding it to our list for voting for this round as well. So you'll have it to vote on. Recruit and retain local education providers and leaders. Anything else that's missing that we should add or that we got wrong in that list? Yeah.
I think there's a big focus on the locality and local and all that stuff. And I think that something we need to really keep in mind and think about on all these things, expanding housing options, I mean, everything you can think about is that we need to focus on local people and local businesses when we're doing this as well. If we're expanding housing options, we need to be having local contractors. When we're doing stuff with schools, if we're trying to focus on agriculture and getting food into the schools, we need to focus on local agriculture. We need to keep the tax dollars in the community, and it can expand all the way out to broadband services, electricity, garbage disposal, housing, community-owned housing, where the community owns housing and the community has the ability to regulate what's going on in that housing. So I think just everything we do on this entire list, we need to think about how can we keep everything in the community, from the development, contracting, consulting, whatever it is, try to keep it for a local, regional, whether it's in the state or whether it's local, but not international corporations and state and companies that are in Houston, Texas or something like that. So keeping the tax dollars local.
Yeah, got it. So you're kind of proposing like that's like a lens that we want to keep as we're thinking about the ideas this evening. And let me just say, because I think it's helpful in thinking about what these things mean. Tonight is just about saying this is the theme that we want to work on. Think about next steps. A task force is going to form, right? That's going to work on that. And you, others in the room, could join that task force, and that's when they start to dig into, like, what does this mean for Highgate? If we're going to be advancing career training and workforce development, it's up to that task force to decide, what does that look like for Highgate? And someone on that task force could be there saying, like, it means that it's got to be local opportunities, it's got to be working with our local institutions, like, that stuff is going to come. And tonight it's really a matter of focusing on, what are those broad, those concrete topics that we're going to work on, but that work will come after to kind of formulate what that's going to look like on the ground. It's Stephen. Stephen, go ahead. You'll have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is Steve Connolly. I'm sorry I missed the first meeting, but I was wondering how far west this discussion about ideas and development and resources go. What I haven't seen is anything to do with Lake Champlain, exit 22 off the freeway, so forth. Is that part of this discussion? Resources that are sort of on the other side of the freeway?
Yeah, I mean, there's no geographic bounds, I would say. And so, Stephen, if you feel like that's missing, what we would need is kind of an action idea, and we could add it to the list. So if it is having to do with Lake Champlain, for example, I'd want to know kind of what's the action there, and we could add that to the list.
Well, on the fly, I consider it sort of like the rail trail, where it's a resource that you can attract tourism, visitors, center activities around. So Lake Champlain could be sort of like that. We have a state boat ramp. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's kind of a resort, and that's a private enterprise, of course. But so I don't know, just off the cuff, it's just a similar resource as some of the others that have been mentioned. That's all.
Great. So I'm wondering, Stephen, do you think, so say in that Boost Highgate tourism idea, I wonder if you would be comfortable if we made sure, right now, and Brian's got the notes pulled up, if we made sure to integrate, Lake Champlain and other assets into that description, does it feel like it would be captured there rather than a separate idea?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So let's all understand that when we're talking about that idea this evening, that maybe we missed some pieces there about other potential, tourism and marketing kind of assets. So let's make sure that we're all considering that as part of that piece when we think about tourism. Thank you, Stephen. So let me address the combining question really quick, because it was a good question. And before we go to a vote, I do want to say, we have almost never come to a community at this stage in the conversation where folks don't want to combine things together. It's natural. I will say we do tend to be pretty cautious about combining, but there are reasonable places where you might decide to. So the reason we're cautious is just because there's a lot of power in prioritizing. There's a lot of power in identifying those kind of narrow, areas of work, because if you're not prioritizing, all of these things could be connected, but if you add them all together, you're back where you started a month ago with just a list of ideas. What we want to do is get down to what are those concrete action steps we can take now? And so we want to be a task force that's going to work on one of these things. They can't do it all. They want to have a narrow focus to kind of be able to accomplish what they're working on. That said, there may be places where you decide as a group, there's some things that just really need to be fit together and they don't make sense to be separate, and we would be open to hearing that. The process that we'll use to do that, if somebody made kind of an official motion to stand up and say, I think these two things should really be combined, I would actually then ask for a vote from the room, just a show of hands and on Zoom. And we would want a strong majority of people to feel like those things should be combined. Otherwise, we would leave them separate. So certainly something to consider, but no requirement to do it, and some caution around it too. But if there's no formal proposals to do that, then I would say, and unless anything else is missing, I would say we could just go to our first vote and see where we land with those top 8. Yes? Here. Yeah, just so they can hear you.
Expanding community events and boosting community volunteerism and engagement. I think looking at that, expanding community events, what we're lacking is the volunteerism and engagement. I think between the library and the rec department, a lot of these things on the list would happen, except we're both stretched so thin that we don't have the volunteerism and engagement. So that's the only thing that I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great observation. So what he's saying is, one of the reasons that some of those events aren't happening, aren't getting accomplished, or aren't expanding is because there's a lack of people kind of ready to stand up, to volunteer, to engage. And so really, in order for one of those things to happen, the other one needs to happen. So maybe those things should be connected. Is that what you're saying? So if you're kind of making a formal proposal, is that a formal proposal? Okay. All right. We've got a formal proposal. So let me just describe what that means before we ask people to vote. So what that means is that we would take these sheets on the wall, we would take our online sheet, and we would actually merge those things together. They become one. What that means is if that's prioritized, a task force would form to work on those things together, right? So the question is, does it make sense, a task force that's working on expanding, boosting, celebrating community events, would it make sense for them also to be working on recruiting more volunteers, building engagement? I will say some of the aspects of what I heard there were also about emergency services and kind of other pieces, so I will kind of put that out there. However, that could be a reasonable combination. So does everyone have a good sense of what that means if you're voting to yes, combine them? Okay, and people on Zoom, I guess I can't see if you're nodding your head, but hopefully it's clear that we're talking about the two ideas of expanding and boosting community events. Expand community events, and what does the other one say? Boosting kind of volunteerism and engagement. Oh, they're right next to each other. Boosting community volunteerism and engagement and expanding community events. Everyone ready to share your opinion? Okay. So if you feel that expanding community events and boosting volunteerism and engagement should be connected, a show of hands. That's quite a few. Okay, a thumbs up on Zoom. Folks can either wave or give a thumbs up or let us know yes or no. All right. Seeing multiple thumbs up and many people in the room, I think that's a general decision. Those two things would be connected. So we're going to go ahead. Brian's going to put them together on the sheets. Margaret will add them together for our online voting. And those things have become one. All right, thanks. Yes. Well, we're considering.
I would like to put on the floor a combination of improved community communications, develop a community resource hub, and expand the Highgate Library and Community Center as one thing as well.
All right, so that's a lot to pull together.
But they're all connected.
I do think sometimes it sounds great to combine these things, but when you get this huge thing, you're going to end up focusing on one little piece of that huge thing, and some of that other stuff might get, even the volunteers and plus this, you might only focus on community events and no volunteerism. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it's certainly a risk of combining a lot of things is you end up with a task force of, maybe 5 to 10 community volunteers who are tasked with quite a lot to take on, right? As opposed to, we're really focusing on supporting the library trustees and expanding the library, whatever that would look like. It's now, library and community communications and the resource hub, which was a fairly broad idea. However,
I do agree that we should probably be careful not to put the cart in front of the horse and keep it small, because if it gets too big, then we'll probably just end up failing. And we want to really stay focused on the community and on the people of the community. So choosing things that focus on that to start with, there's always room to grow. But if we try to jump way too far, if our goals are too big and not small enough at the start, we might end up not being as successful as we could otherwise be.
Sure, thanks. Yeah.
I guess who's going to be on all these task force? Because we don't look in this room. I mean, it's not a ton of people that are showing up. So I'm looking at how many there are here, and I can see why. I totally agree. I don't want to lose things on these things. But the reality is, I'm looking at it going, I could be on 4 different task force, but there's not enough time.
So I think you may have missed in the very beginning. We are going to vote down to 3. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's a good question, who's going to be on these task forces? Yeah, we will ask everyone in the room if you're able to sign up for them. But we do also have a list of all the 120 that participated in the first event and shared surveys. And we do tend to get quite a lot of signups online, too, especially if folks will send an email tomorrow with a link that you can share as well. So you can encourage all your friends to sign up, too. No. No. I would actually, I'm kind of saying I would discourage from combining too much. What we're trying to do is choose among these, the top 3. But what I'm saying is, sometimes communities find there are places that make sense to combine, but we would actually tend to kind of, want to keep them separate, unless there's a really compelling reason to combine them together. So are you going to keep your proposal on the table? Hearing?
People just say no if they don't like it. This is all a discussion. I'm just saying, I think if you don't like it, say no. That's awesome.
I'm hearing some general no's, so maybe we'll take that as a no on that one. And we'll see where it lands. It could be, if some of those things end up in this final 8 that we're going to get to, it might make sense to have that conversation again. Yes.
Is the object of this exercise to bring this down to 3 majors?
3 top priorities.
I'll give you the 1 top priority.
Well, I want to hear that. Hold on to that. I'm backing away with the microphone. So once we get to that 8, you will have the chance to tell us what that 1 priority should be. Yeah.
To relieve the anxiety of some of us who do want to do everything, we'll get this down to 3, but that doesn't mean these things will forever be off the table for the rest of our lives. I'm assuming that somewhere these will be held in the background somewhere. Is that correct?
Yes, I should hire you to co-facilitate with me. I feel like, yes, that's exactly right. So nothing on this list goes away, right? At the end of this process, we're going to get you a final action plan and report, and we're really going to dig into those 3 that you choose tonight in terms of leaning in with support and technical assistance and resources. But all of these will be in there, and nothing in this process gets in the way of any of these things happening. And in fact, Swanton, right next door, is a great example of when they went through this process. the head of the Arts Council was facilitating one of the forums, and people were coming up with this idea of like, we should start an arts council in Swanton. And so, Zahn, who's facilitating the forum, says, you should just do that. Like, why talk about it in this process? And they did. Before we even got to the last meeting, they'd already started, and many of you, it sounds like, are familiar with the Swanton Arts Council. So that's okay. These things, in Craftsbury, same thing with a child care center that emerged. So none of this goes away. We're just saying tonight, here are the things we're going to work on, right now, and we're going to lean in terms of resources and connection. And one more thing here, and then we should go to a vote pretty soon.
A brief question. So the youth forum that you guys held helped come up with some of these. Did they vote? Like, did they come up with the top 5 or a top 3, and is that going to be an option? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, great question. No, they didn't. So these ideas integrate the ideas that they shared, just like in the forums, and they're all invited to come here and vote. But no, they didn't vote on kind of top priorities. Yeah. So if it's okay, I'd love to shift to a quick kind of gut check vote to those top 8. Uh-oh, another. Oh, you want to remain, okay. Okay, so our combining of those 3 is an official proposal, so I'm going to take you up on that. So again, the 3 are improve community communication, expand the library, Highgate Library and Community Center, and develop a community resource hub. So what that's saying is that a task force would come together that would kind of focus on that expansion of the Highgate Library and Community Center, knowing and noting in this language that, of course, there is leadership on that already in the community, but kind of supporting that effort, developing a community resource hub. And so this is kind of mentions the library as well as a potential location, but really speaking more to kind of broad services, availability of services in the community, and then improve community communication. So a lot around kind of how we're, sharing out events and information and that kind of thing. So is everyone kind of ready with a vote on that question? So folks online, kind of get ready to weigh in with your thumbs up or hand raises. So people that are in favor of combining those 3 ideas, a show of hands. Okay, very few, you have a few takers in the room, a couple on Zoom. I'm going to say that's not a majority, so let's keep those separate for now, but we'll see where it goes. All right, so let's go ahead and shift to a quick vote. Here's how it's going to work. You all in the room are going to have 8 blue dots. So you can take those dots and you can put, if you have one that you feel passionate about, you could put all 8 on one, or you could spread your 8 out, or you could put 2 on 4 different ones. However you want to use your dots, they're yours to use. They're each worth 1 vote. Online, so on Zoom, you're going to momentarily receive a link to a poll where you will also have 8 virtual dots, and you can distribute those on your poll in any way that you want to. And so we're going to turn the sound off quickly here, and Alyssa's going to walk you through that.
Library doesn't have a place anymore, but I think it can be the center of a community if we make it that way. And we still belong to the St. Albans Library because they are so vibrant and there's so much that happens there. We used to live there. And if we could just, I would love to see that happen here. So I just think it's a big part of it.
Great, thank you.
I have to say, Highgate Library is where I go for all my information on what's going on. They have tons of events for kids and adults, and there's always people in there. So it's definitely there's food for anyone who needs food. She gets food out to everyone. I mean, it's that you can rent bikes and gear and sports gear and computers if you need a computer. It's pretty amazing, all the stuff she does out of the little space.
Yeah.
The center spot.
Great, thank you. So just a couple last points on championing, and then we're gonna go ahead and shift to a vote. Yes.
I'm just going to steal a little bit from Tim Smith from a meeting quite a while back. We were talking about the airport and how he was saying you need to look for a business that's going to take this product and move it out of Highgate, and then the money's going to come back into Highgate. So I think we have to look at some of these things not just as Highgate, but more as a regional. For instance, fire departments. I think there's going to come the day that we're going to have to partner up with our nearby towns to get some of our work done. I'm not saying we can't be looking out for ourselves, but let's not shy away from our neighbors.
Great. Thank you. Any other last thoughts before, are people ready to vote? Think so? Yes.
And bring forward that whatever priorities the town picks out, they can help me, help you by prioritizing those things that you think we'll be seeking grants for. I think that would make a compelling application in a grant if it said, through a very public process, the town prioritized a new library, for example. That would really make a great case. So if that's where you're going, it'd be nice to see it in the top 3 so that could be part of the application. Or if it's advanced career training. So just keeping that in mind where your priorities end up, that those will be things that will be very useful for grant applications to make those things happen. So maybe cleaning up parks and stuff doesn't necessarily have to be something that needs funding, and maybe could happen without getting in your top 3. But just food for thought.
Great, thank you. And right, next month, we would bring with us folks that might have those grants and funding resources that could help with some of this work. Yes.
I think part of the problem is that we keep saying expand the Highgate library. It's not just a library. If there was another word we could use to include the community center, it's as big.
We have community center added in there.
At the end, but what's the first thing that comes out? Highgate Library. So they think books, silence, sitting in your chair, but it's the community center that's going to be the heart of that.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That's really the highlight. That's the headline for you, is the community center. All right, so I'm feeling like we're probably ready to shift to that vote. We're going to do the same thing, but a little bit different. So with this vote, rather than the 8, you're just going to have 3 orange dots. And again, you could put all of those on one. You could spread them out. It's up to you how you use them. Folks online, we can pull that sheet down, and then again, same process. Alyssa's going to share that link, and you'll be able to use your 3 dots to vote, and then we'll take a little break, and we'll come back to share those final priorities and a couple of next steps. And so once you have your dots, go ahead and feel free to mill about for a little bit, and we'll probably wrap up even ahead of 9. Alyssa, do you see that there's somebody in the waiting room there? Thanks. We good, Margaret? No. Oh. Let's add that to the packing list for next time. All right. So we're going to pull that up in the screen in just a moment, but I'll read through where we landed. So here's where we are. You'll notice there are 4 and not 3. There was a tie among the last 2 that were voted on. And we brought in our chair, Rebecca, and we looked at it, and here's where we landed. So support ag and ag career pathways, training, and workforce development is one of the top priorities. Expand library and community center. Expand community events and volunteerism and engagement. And then recruit and support local business were the 4 that emerged as top leaders. It doesn't mean that any of those other 4 aren't excellent ideas, but folks might have just thought, like, these are the things, based on the conversation we had tonight, these are the things that are most actionable, that are most important, that really build the foundation for what we want to see for the future of Highgate. And I think that really, I think these all make sense based on the conversation that we heard tonight and throughout the forums. And I think also, our goal here was to form, 3 task forces. And in discussions with Rebecca, I'll just kind of share, it kind of lands in a similar place anyhow, knowing, like we discussed, that this library and community center, there is leadership there already. We're probably not going to form a new task force that's going to lead on that. We have the trustees, we have the library, we have the town leading on that. However, we can, if folks want to sign up to be a part of that, you can lend your volunteerism, you can lend your energy and enthusiasm, and we can think with the trustees, with Ada, the library, what makes sense in terms of how we can best bring support to that. And next month, when we bring resource leaders, funders, providers, we'll still bring folks to work with the group on that topic, knowing that it may not be a new task force, whereas these other ones, that's really what we want to do there. We want to create a new group. There isn't an existing group today from what we know now. There isn't an existing group that's really leading on these pieces. And so what we're saying is, let's go ahead and do that. Let's create 3 new volunteer-led groups that can help to focus on these efforts. So from here, what we're going to do is actually, Kim, right now, and do we have that to pull up on the screen there? No? Oh, it's not syncing up. Darn. Well, for folks on Zoom, let me just read through it one more time so that you know where we landed. So support ag and ag career pathways, training and workforce development, expand the Highgate Library and Community Center, expand community events and community engagement and volunteerism, and then recruit and support local business. So where we go next, Kim is putting sign-up sheets on the table back there. That's where you can, there's actually 2 of each sheet. So you'll notice it's on either side of the table just to give people space to sign in. So add your name to either one. If you're interested in working on any of these things, please plug your name in. Let us know that you're interested in working on that. Tomorrow, we'll send out a link to a little survey that would allow you to sign up there. And that will go out to the full list of all the participants that aren't here tonight but have been engaged in the process. And I'm sure we'll be interested to see where we landed tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to lend their time and energy to these efforts as well. And please share that link. So that link that we give you tomorrow, you can share that. We'll put it on Facebook. We'll ask Heidi to share it on the town Facebook. If any of you, the library Facebook, whatever makes sense, we'll get it out there and ask folks to sign on to be a part of these things. Even if people haven't been involved in this process yet, they may be really interested in one of these and might be interested in getting involved. So let's make sure to get it out there. Next month, so May 24th, that's going to be an opportunity for task forces to meet around these topics for the first time. And we will facilitate a conversation to help those groups build an action plan. And we're also going to bring a team with us. Tomorrow, we're going to get on the phone with with Tim Smith and invite him to come and support one of these task forces. We'll get on the phone with the Regional Planning Commission. We'll call, folks that are working on, career and workforce development at the state level, but also community leaders that have accomplished, those folks from Highgate that we were talking about that completed their project, that they could come and share their perspective. Other communities that are that have this kind of robust system of community events and volunteerism, we'll bring them to kind of share what's worked for them. So we'll bring that team, not to tell the community what to do, but to share resources and support. And so from then on out, we want to support this work as well. So know that although these all feel like daunting ideas, these things are possible. These things are things that communities have accomplished, and we're here to make sure to connect you to the resources you might need to make those things happen. So I'm going to pass it back to Brian to close. I want to thank everyone involved in the process so far. Thank all of you for coming out. I know this is a long meeting. It's hard work, but it's an important point in the process, and just really appreciate all of you being a part of the discussion and look forward to next steps. And I'll hand it to Brian to close.
Hey, thanks, Jenna. Thank you, everybody. And a couple things. I do want to thank Jenna especially. I think it's really hard to facilitate a meeting as you start, as in general. And we've tried to find new ways to challenge her, where she has to simultaneously facilitate an in-person meeting in real life and also everybody on Zoom. So Jenna, thank you. And grow a baby at the same time. Yeah, so really great work. Thank you to Sharon. Thank you to Rebecca. Thank you to everybody for being here. I spoke a little bit at the beginning about how, it is a challenge when things are uncertain and when you think about the future. I want to close with some optimism. I do really believe that Lincoln said it, democracy is an experiment. It's not a certainty, it's absolutely an experiment. And so the idea of us spending a night together, thinking proactively about our communities, about our civic institutions, and spending our time thinking about how we're going to strengthen those is really important work. Thank you for giving your time tonight and coming up with these different priorities. I am really looking forward to being back here next month to make those connections between some of these statewide resource providers and some of these different task forces and projects that are already underway. And I think the last thing is actually, Rebecca, if you want to have any kind of final words tonight, the floor would be yours. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, folks. And we will see you on May 24th back here in Highgate. Thank you. Oh, and goodbye to everybody on Zoom.